Am I going to be okay? Once the initial shock of losing her life partner for the last 50 years began to subside, this became my grandmother's greatest concern. Am I going to be okay financially? Can I still afford to live on my own? Will I have to give up my independence? And the sad truth was the ultimate answer to each of those questions was no. She was not going to be okay, at least financially. The number one fear for all retirees across the board is running out of money before running out of life. The fear of running out is even greater than the fear of death. This became a reality for my grandmother. Originally from Steubenville, Ohio, a tri-state area bordering West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, my grandparents lived a difficult life from childhood, never having any surplus. My grandmother, known to her grandchildren as Meemaw, recalled times when she would go without food when she was a child. Born in the 1930s, her family was hit hard by the Great Depression. My grandfather, known as Pap Pap, went to work in the steel mill at the age of 16 to help support his family. As the oldest of 8 children, it became part of his responsibility to provide for his younger siblings. Truly a mountain of a man, already pushing 6'4" at the age of 16, well over 200 pounds. No one questioned him when he filled out the paperwork stating that he was 18 to go to work. He worked for 40 years at Weirton Steel as a human forklift, offloading raw material and loading finished material on the docks of the Ohio River in Weirton, West Virginia. During his time there, he met, fell in love, and married my grandmother. They raised 4 children together: Earl, Roger, who is my father, David, and Laura Marie. 40 years at the steel mill took a hard toll on my grandfather's health, and by his late 50s, his declining health forced him to retire. When he retired, he received a handshake and a pension check. And never having made a whole lot of money at Weirton Steel, the pension that my grandfather received was a modest one. But once my grandfather was able to start Social Security, those 2 monthly income sources became the tickets to what my grandparents thought would be a long and happy retirement together. It even got a little bit better when my grandmother became eligible for Social Security. Being a little younger than my grandfather, she had to wait a little while longer to start taking her Social Security. But once she could start drawing, for the first time in their lives, my grandparents actually had a little wiggle room. And ultimately, this allowed them to move to Georgia, where 2 of their adult children had already relocated. Unfortunately, my grandfather's health continued to decline, and he passed away at the age of 72 from complications from an open heart surgery. Since he took a reduced amount on his pension to make sure my grandmother would be taken care of if he passed away, 100% of my grandfather's pension actually continued on for my grandmother. But she lost a different source of income. If you didn't know already, when one spouse passes away, the smaller of the 2 Social Security checks goes away, but you get to keep the larger amount. So in this case, my grandmother's Social Security check was reclaimed, and that wiggle room that she once had was gone. Scraping and fighting to keep her independence is all she really wanted. She wanted to maintain her dignity and remain self-sufficient, and she fought to do that for the rest of her life. And as anyone can imagine, losing her husband and a portion of her income changed my grandmother for forever. She lived as frugally as she could. When Campbell's chicken noodle soup would go on sale for $1, she would buy it by the caseload and store it on her back porch. 2 years after my grandfather passed, the rug was completely ripped out from underneath my grandmother's feet once again. Struggling to survive since the collapse of the steel industry in the 1980s, Weirton Steel filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy on Monday, May 19, 2003, which ultimately led to the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, the PBGC, taking over the defined benefit pension plan. My grandfather's pension was reduced by roughly 40%, which resulted in my grandmother losing her ability to live independently. She simply couldn't afford to live on her own anymore, and she moved in with my Aunt Laura Marie, her husband, and 2 children. Fortunately for my grandmother, she had a family who loved her dearly, that welcomed her with open arms, but that was not the retirement nor the outcome that she envisioned. Her greatest fear became a reality. She ran out of money before she ran out of life, she lost her independence, and in her eyes, she became a burden to her children. So, why am I telling you all of this? My father, Roger Ford, started Conservative Financial Solutions with the intent on helping as many families as possible in his sphere of influence avoid the financial hardships his parents, my grandparents, had to endure. And we have been doing it for over 37 years now. My name is Spencer Ford, Certified Financial Planner at Conservative Financial Solutions, and I, along with my brother Austin Ford, are the second generation of financial advisors in my family. We grew up hearing my grandparents' story, and we were taught the values of stepping up for your family when they needed it. My Aunt Laura Marie opened my grandmother to her home, and my mother and father quickly jumped in financially. At Conservative Financial Solutions, we don't have clients. We have families that we serve. When you make a decision to work with one of our advisors, you become one of the families that we enjoy being around. No one in our office refers to our families as clients because you're not a client, you're a family. And just like our family, come hell or high water, we're going to do whatever we can to serve you to the best of our ability. That's who we are, it's what we do, and it's what we stand for. We hold conservative beliefs, we have conservative values, and we are Conservative Financial Solutions. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.